That's all right. Okay. Welcome, Marcus. Welcome, Greg. Thanks for coming on and doing this. Just a bit about my background. I've been a principal for the last 13 years out at Sydney and in southwest Sydney and in southern Sydney. So I'm currently at Marsden Road Public School. So I'm just having a break from the job and helping out Nikki and Life Skills Group, just trying to get these products into schools and try and help, student wellbeing across the country, basically, just for that short term before I go back in and do what I love, being in schools. And yeah, you do miss it after a while. You forget about those good things that you're doing.
I'm at principal at St Richard's in Kilsyth, which is in eastern suburbs of Melbourne. So I've been principal for 5 years here and in education for over 25 years now. And we've been using life skills in my previous school in Box Hill, St Francis Xavier in Box Hill, and as a deputy principal and wellbeing leader in that role. And then we've used them again here at St Richard's. So we sort of do it as a biannual thing. We have the Life Skills Group come and run I guess the 6 to 8 week program, usually during term 2 at our school.
I've been at this school since 1989. And we've got a new principal who's just come in last term. But yeah, in the time I've been here, I've been a specialist teacher, mainly in music, performing arts. But I've also been in grade 6. I've taught all the way down to grade 1. So I'm part of the furniture. And some of the teachers here are now kids I used to teach. So yeah. And I've been asked a few times, why have you stayed in one place? Well, it's been a good school. I've done lots of different things. I spent 3 years as a coach of the Victorian soccer team as well with the VPWSA. So I have got lots of experience in lots of different fields.
I guess the first question there is for both of you. During these unprecedented times, what has stood out for you guys in your observations and in areas of concern for your staff and students in that wellbeing space? I'm not sure if Greg, do you want to start and let us know how that's been going?
We have, for a start, we're a pretty low socioeconomic background area, a lot of transient population. So our school population goes up and down quite a bit. And we have a lot of kids we have Western Autistic School, which is not far away. So we get a lot of kids who transition out of there to us. So that's a real issue as behaviour-wise. But one thing I've really noticed with all this chopping and changing and going into lockdown and out of lockdown, the kids come back, we've noticed that children have a lot of trouble working out almost like a pecking order in the playground, how to play nicely again, how do you play and not get your own way all the time. So, that's, and a few emotional issues too, with certain kids not wanting to come back and others really keen to come back and we've had a few parents this week actually write into us saying, can I send my child because I'm not cut out to be a teacher? And I said, unless you're an essential worker, and unfortunately we can't help you there, but that's something I've noticed, that the kids really just, the chopping and changing does seem to affect them emotionally and in their relationships to each other.
Yeah, I think the main thing with staff in this remote learning time is listening to all their needs. So we've tried to make sure throughout this time you're supporting all the staff, doesn't matter what role they've got. So the teaching staff, where we can, we've tried not to have them on site, and we've had probably more students on site of recent until the latest restrictions and guidelines. It's probably cut out just a handful, but it's really listening to that balance of how you support the teachers in continuing the learning for the students, but also those staff who are on site, and that's our education sort of support staff who would look after our funded students, and myself and my deputy principal who adapt to our roles, and we're back in the classroom for certain hours of our day just to try and support each other and everyone. And I think the key component I've seen in this space is you don't always get it right. So because we've been in and out of different lockdown periods, is we've adapted and changed and tried to make a sort of, make sure you're listening to each staff voice. So that's the key for us. And with the students, we've, again, each period's changed. I think last year it was a bit of a novelty, and we probably thought there was closure, whereas now that novelty's worn off, and closure's looking very far away. So, but throughout it, I think our students have been the most resilient, particularly of recent. It's the parents who are, finding it really challenging, whether it's work or home life or, managing their child's learning. And it's got more difficult. So again, I've just tried to, I suppose as the principal of the school, firstly make sure that students have got access to the resources they need to access to learning. So there's some families in certain times that needed to come on site because they fitted that vulnerable category. And so you provide that support where you can. And even those at home, we're lucky we've got one-to-one devices, and we've been able to take them home each time. But if they've had to get hard copy resources for our younger students, then that's been available. So it's really just doing your best to cater for the needs of everyone, and that's varied, and it's different in different times. So.
I agree. I said the point there is the anxiety of teachers as well, and
yes,
it's like an adult anxiety almost levels, isn't it? And then the students are really resilient, but I agree the social skills and those friendships that they're missing and lacking is tough. And then when they have to come back to a school as a primary kid, and they're hoping that resilience you can build up. And obviously both schools are doing a great job trying to look after their kids and look after their teachers and their communities, which is so important. So I guess
we've got our specialist teachers on a roster.
Yeah.
So one or two of them each day, and everyone else is just working from home. But like you said, Marcus, the teachers get a bit stressed about. They're anxious about their kids because they're making contact as much as they can at home, but a lot of kids don't get on. So I get a list of emails from so-and-so hasn't got on. Can you follow them up?
Yeah.
They've already called the parent. Well, the parent doesn't answer the phone. Me ringing is not really going to make a difference, but I try. And sometimes they do answer the school phone number.
I know what you're saying. So, I'm guessing on that note, how do you decide who would combat those issues and areas? I'm guessing that's hard. How do you decide who's going to help the most? I guess Marcus as the principal, how do you decide that?
Helping the students is
It's again where I try and sort of communicate that out to parents. If it's a learning need, contact the classroom teacher directly. If it's a wellbeing need, it's my deputy principal and myself where we can. So that's probably that point of contact. So making that really clear, because if I had to address every learning need, I'd be inundated, I think, with communication or messages. So it's really and it's the key is that clear communication too. So we make sure that we're sending out the communication at the same time. So whether it's the prep classes to the Year 6 classes, that's the same communication at the same time as well, because obviously some families have got siblings in different year levels, and they'll start to compare. And I think more than ever before, our teaching programs probably been scrutinised more so than because it's available. So I think last year was really making, putting yourself in the shoes of the parents and saying, well, if they need to be able to understand the language, so changing some of that teacher language to meet the needs of the parents, and being as transparent as you can. So as different issues arise, you've got to address it. And
I think that, like you said, Max, attitudes have changed a bit. I mean, last year we had people who wanted to have classes all day.
Yes, yeah.
And we were like, you can't do that to the kids because the parents who need the computer at home only had one device.
Yeah.
And we aren't a BYOD school yet. Next year, hopefully.
Yeah.
If they're all sharing the one device, then you've got pressures from the parents' work or whatever. But we've said, but you've got to let kids be kids. They need their break from the classwork. So do most of your work in the morning, set welfare activities, or let them just have free time or whatever in the afternoon.
Yeah.
We had one teacher last year a grade 1-2 teacher, who was doing hour-long WebExes with them and just doing most of the talking. And we're like, and we had the kids coming to school who had to come in, and we'd say to them, oh, you've got to get on with Miss such and such. And they're like, oh, and that was their attitude. They roll their eyes and you go, oh, maybe you won't have to do it today. We'll go and do something else.
Yeah, and that's hard. Yeah, it's really hard trying to make how you get those right decisions being made at the right times. I guess in terms of that, when you look at all the things that have happened in the schools, especially the last 18 months, is there any special programs that you guys have chosen, and how did you implement them? I guess anything that's helped the well-being of your students. Is there something that you can say, yep, this is a program we put in, and how's it helped?
But our new principal, we're really keen to bring in school-wide positive behaviours, and we've got our curriculum day is with respectful relationships. But it's been moved. This will be the third time we've moved our curriculum day because of COVID. So we still haven't got it. So they're the things we're looking at doing to try and improve the social side of the welfare.
You're seeing the benefits, like an in-school program to help kids and things like that. That's why you've chosen potentially some of those programs to move forward. And it's just getting the right balance. It's been hard because of COVID and issues. You haven't been able to get the balance that you wanted at the moment. But you can certainly see the benefits of a program like that will help kids, which is great. So.
Yeah. And it's lovely when you see some of the kids we actually this year got the yoga program finished in the prep to force, and they'll say things to me like, but I did my breaths, and I've had a parent, a school council president, said she was getting really a bit frustrated driving home with one of the kids in the back of the car, and he turned to her and said, Mum, take some breaths, it's just a craziness coming out, that'll stop it. So
that's something to remember.
Learn from my skills. I thought it was really lovely.
That's good. I guess, Marcus, have you guys got programs you've been putting in place to try and support?
Yeah, so we used the Life Skills Go program last year, and obviously this year has been a little bit different because there hasn't been that consistent lockdown period. So term 3 was pretty much all of last year, and so we had been able to get a consistency in that online module and program, and staff got into a routine, whereas this year we've been back to school, out of school, and so that's has been different. But I think again, even when we're on site, it's that proactiveness, and we know that the learning's not going to happen unless the students' wellbeing is prioritised. So in the programs that we've put in place, as Greg just said, the positive school behaviour, and with social emotional learning, and I'm trying to think of the other one that we use, but we're very proactive in that space. Relationships are the key, and the teachers, when we have our Google Meets each morning, and that's the priority of those Google Meets in the morning is wellbeing. So there's a fun element to it. There's a Kahoot quiz, a scavenger hunt, a game, a check-in, and then they'll go off into their small focus groups for the day. So the key component of us connecting in this time is the wellbeing, and that allows, and you can get that emotion through even on remotely, of how the kids are feeling. So afterwards, the teachers might need to check in with a phone call. But
I'm guessing how's it been the response from the staff? Have they taken that on board, all the different things you've tried? And I guess students need to embed that as well. So are they okay with that too?
Yeah, absolutely. It's because I think Google Meets or Zoom meetings have changed certainly too. Because when we started, it was a real novelty, and we know if you're in the classroom with the students, they're only going to, prep class children are only going to be still for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So you can't have them on for half an hour, and they'll be fiddling around with buttons and muting them. So you've got to keep that just as engaging as if they were in the classroom. So teachers have adapted each time and each learning period, and we've adapted our I suppose what we call non-negotiables. So yeah, that morning roll call and check-in is vital for the rest of the day.
What would be the 3 main areas or things that you would like to be able to measure in the wellbeing space in your school, and probably why that's important? So are there 3 things that really stand out for you?
Not sure. I've got one,
Yeah.
and it's just, I guess, how do you measure their level? You know, if this is the balance level, you know, when they're highly anxious, or the opposite is, you know, feeling, you know, really positive. Yeah, you how to read a person. That's really it. That's the key. You know, if there was a program that's, yeah, or sorry, if there was something that you could measure, it's the well-being levels, because it changes, you know, day in a day or in an hour, particularly with staff.
So would you use PD to help Marcus, your staff? Have you used some of
Yeah,
the elements of say, of Life Skills Group? Have you used that or other PD
we
elements?
did. Yeah, yeah. Nikki ran a session with us at the end of term 2, so we had to do it online. It was going to be face to face, and yeah, the staff found that really valuable. So yeah, staff wellbeing is a priority for us, and in my decision making with the leadership team, and you know, being consultative as much as you can, and reading people, and trying to put yourselves in their shoes is the key. So you don't always get it right, and but yeah, that would be the one thing I wish I could measure is how they're going.
But you can see the benefit of Go, the tracking of the students and how that can be a major difference for your school, and by getting the responses of students all the way through, like across a week, across a month, you can see that benefit. I know, Marcus, you've seen that benefit probably last year, and
Yeah.
and again, Greg, you could probably see that moving forward into school. So that's getting that, I guess, getting the buy-in from, you see the difference, but how do you get that from your senior leadership and getting the buy-in for everyone to make a difference throughout the school? I guess that's just keep going at it, isn't it? So
it's just that. And unfortunately, Monique, who's been coming out and doing yoga program with our kids, we did have her booked in, I think 3 times now we booked her in to come and work with the classroom teachers. They were all keen for her to come in for the day. And every time it's the day after she's coming in, that's when the lockdown started.
So it'd be great if we had normal conditions. You can see the benefits of the programs, in-school programs. We're seeing the benefit of the Go program because we can measure those kids' well-being. But it's just tough at the moment because of what's happening as well. I get that. So
and I said I'd put a big shout out to Monique, because she's been fantastic, and when she's been here, but we just haven't been able to get her at the right time.
How would success look in your school if you had these wellbeing programs really going? So what does success look like for you guys?
You probably can, there's lots of different things you measure on, like that engagement in the classroom, student attendance, that growth in learning. They're probably some of the 3 key ones. That I think we could, like in our school in the last probably 3 or 4 years, in prioritising wellbeing, there's been the relationships between students and staff has improved immensely. So when I guess the success comes back to that, I think, relationships within your school community. So it's the stakeholders, and the parents are involved in that as well. And I think prior to that, that wasn't evident. And there was probably an element of disrespect with students speaking to staff. So I think success comes through prioritising wellbeing within your school. And if that's programs such as life skills, building relationships, that focusing on positive behaviour, and I think the biggest thing for us is that consistent practice from class to class, and language that you use. So
that's our biggest push too here at the moment, is relationships, building them between the staff and the students. You know, as I said, we have a lot of kids. We've got a couple who are here unfunded on behaviour issues. So building that is one of our, I think if we had that welfare side going well through the school, from right top to the bottom, you wouldn't have a lot of issues in the yard. And it's quite strange, because I don't know what's happening at your school, Marcus, but it's not our bigger kids that are the problem, it's our little ones. I don't know whether it's because they've had a couple of years of not being in a routine of coming to school, but they're the ones who are struggling at the moment. Our older kids are lovely and working well.
It's probably, I mean, there's probably going to be some element of social interaction in the last 18 months for our, maybe the next cohort coming through particularly, but
They're
it's,
great.
sorry?
They're great ones who've got all the issues.
So it's, but I think you're right. The key is the relationship. And for us, it's been a real focus over the last years, but it had to be a bit of a change in culture too, because you look like you're on your road to it and you never get there, or you never stop being content. You've got to keep working at it. So that's been certainly a big change in us. I think the staff would say that, to go out to do yard duty is just peaceful. But when I started, it would have been going on a school tour or, yard duty, you're wondering what's going to happen somewhere, whereas now I don't have a problem.
Yeah. I'm guessing in terms of the benefits, I guess, Greg, you've used Life School Go products before, so what do you like most about, the in-school programs and Go? Is there something that really resonates with you?
I can talk more about the in-school programs because the teachers that have come out have been fantastic. The kids have really connected with them really well. The staff have reacted really well. The first year we did it, 2019, the parents got to come in and do a session as well. And the feedback from the parents was so positive. Oh, you've got to do this again next year. This was so good. I've learned so many things I'll try at home.
Yep.
And that language, being that shared language across the grades, across the parents, the community. So that side of it I loved about it. So, but you walk into the room and the kids are just engaged and they're involved and they're sort of like in the questions they're asked, they're part of it. So it's not coming from a person telling them what to do. It's drawing it out of the kids about what's the right way to behave and how could you calm yourself down or whatever in a situation.
So I guess, Marcus, from your point, you've used Go before and you've got the PD element you've used as well. Is there things that you really like about those programs as well?
Yeah, so with the classroom program, because I'm not in the classroom, I don't get to see it working on the front line, I guess. But I know of the staff that the language and the yoga, go to the yoga sessions we've done as well over the years. It's that the strategies that they use. So the students to calming strategies, and they've used them back in the classroom as well. So you see the correlation that they can be used anywhere as well. So it doesn't have to be, to begin your school day. It can be used after school care. It can be used at your at home when your your emotions change as well. But we've looked at sort of a growth mindset as well. Students building a growth mindset. But just the characteristics of what makes ourselves a better person. And I think that's what Nikki talked about with the staff, is that self-worth. And so you take in little bits from everything. And I think that shared language, I think, as Greg said, I think that's been a key ingredient too. So you want to, from P to 6, that consistent practice in the language that we're using and what we want to see the children doing. So, yeah.
You used Go last year, Marcus. Was there anything as I said, did that help your school in terms of measuring kids and how they were travelling? That seemed to help last year?
Yeah, I think we used it probably with the 3 to 6 children more. I know one of the teachers in our 3-4 level checked in every day with the students and used that. And then the resources, I'm trying to think from the feedback from last year, but some of the resources had to be a little bit adapted, and obviously because we're in that remote learning period, that's what just you had to do anyway. But the tools and resources are fantastic for teachers to support that wellbeing and of students and deliver our program to teach for those skills that they need.
When you hear kids using the language that's been promoted in the yoga or Life Schools Go, it's nice because the message is getting across.
So I'm guessing you've run so many great programs. Have you seen, I guess, a decrease in behaviour, disruptive behaviour? Is that being something you've noticed in your schools? I know in remote it's difficult at the moment to see that, but I guess when kids are there, are you observing changes in students' behaviour based on the programs you guys are putting in? I guess, Marcus, can you, as from a principal?
Yeah, I think definitely for us, and even in my other school, I was thinking it was a little bit bigger in student number, and it's more, I think the relationships and that priority in wellbeing in the school. Having I mean, there's an initiative I think with probably 15, 20 years ago in having a student wellbeing leader in Catholic schools. So and that's something which I think has driven that. So and putting someone on your student wellbeing as in your leadership team, I think that was one of the other initiatives from it. So I was a student wellbeing leader in my previous role attached to the deputy principal role. So I think, yeah, and then obviously these days part of the curriculum, wellbeing is, as I said, when I have school tours with parents, I talk about the wellbeing of our students and, building relationships and the prep, particularly when you're doing prep school tours for prep parents is, usually that first month of school, they'll be talking about their prep teacher as their superhero. And if they're not doing that, we're doing something wrong. So often, the language is that my teacher doesn't do it like that. And if and the parent going, where did you get this from? So it means that you're doing something right because they're engaged and also they're the teacher's having an impact. And that's probably John Hattie in the learning will say, teacher impact is huge, but it's not just the learning, it's the well-being, which is critical.
I've noticed a difference in our 3, 4 grades because they've done the yoga life skills sort of stuff a couple of years before we came into this year, and they seem to have calmed down from what they were when they were in grade 2 and grade 1.
Well, that's good to hear, isn't it? That's what you want to see, and you see those programs work. And you've been there a long time, Greg, so you've probably seen a lot of changes over the time and different behaviours of students. And I guess anything that can help them, you want to try and look at those programs, don't you?
Yeah.
The final thing with the community and your families, have they responded well to when you've spoken about, you briefly mentioned about some of the input parents have had and with good responses. I guess just finalising, how have you seen the parents and communities react to some of these programs you put in? Has there been positive responses for them?
Oh yeah, very, very positive. And they want to see the school to be a place that's safe and welcoming for those kids when they come in, when we finally get back on site. The school council and all the people who are on school council at the moment are all people who've had children in that program over the last couple of years because their kids are younger, and they're very positive about it. So I think that'll continue.
Fantastic. I guess, Marcus, from your point of view?
Yeah, I think, of more recent, it's one of the things that parents are looking at when they choose a school too. So often it's they'll walk into the classrooms and they want to see calm, focused, engaged classrooms. They will ask questions about the learning and, look at, NAPLAN data or different things, but often that's the first thing that they see. And I think the way that teachers and the staff interact with the children goes a long way to them selecting a school. And if you've got that right and you can show and talk about the programs and initiatives that you've got in place, it's certainly, it goes to a long way in the parents selecting your school. So I always talk about being proactive and not reactive. And so, before we see a problem, you've got to put some things in place to try and ensure that, children can upskilled in dealing with social interactions on the playground. So it's interesting. I think, often is the year 3, 4 level when, particularly in primary schools, where you get a big difference in maturity in that cohort. So, and that's where you usually have those problems perhaps in the playground, and they still arise, but there's certainly, I think we're seeing a change and a shift. Yeah.
And it's really helps when you're on a prep tour and you walk past and they were using the music room for our yoga sessions. You go, oh, this is our yoga program. Everyone's calm.
It's important to keep that community occupied with what you're doing as well, because that's what you need as well. I think it's great. So.
And the current families are positive as. So they're very supportive of the initiatives and things that you're putting in place. So when you communicate it in newsletters, you show photos of what's happening, and I present those at the School Advisory Council about our wellbeing initiatives and things we've been putting in place. So it's I never hear a negative thing about a wellbeing and initiative or program that you've introduced in a school.
No, that's
We
amazing.
are booked in to do the grade 5-6 transition program this year, so we haven't done that before. So that'll be interesting to see how the parents' response is to that. So give you feedback.
That's amazing. So obviously got some great programs there. And I think on behalf of Life Schools Group and Nikki, I appreciate you guys taking the trust in the company to provide some resources for your schools and hopefully make a difference for you. And to give up your time today to talk about those, I really appreciate it. And you both got very passionate for wellbeing in your schools, and your schools are obviously doing very well. So congratulations on what you're doing. Keep up the great work. But again, I really appreciate your time today. And again, thank you for all your kind words and your words of wisdom. And hopefully we can use some of this to get out to schools and show the benefits that we can make in schools as well. So Greg, thank you. And Marcus, thank you very much.